Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Inspired and Empowered Living TV show. And Inspired and Empowered Living for a thriving business and life. And we are live Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern on Talk4TV, W4WN.com, and my YouTube channel. And today we continue to talk about the self-sabotaging behaviors, part 4, and how you can break free. So today we're gonna, I have more behaviors. We had requests for wanting to know even more self-sabotaging behaviors, and I've answered that request. And we're also going to be talking about what you can do to overcome those behaviors. And we have the top 10 self-sabotaging behaviors. So, and how you can, the self-correcting thing that you could do. So stay tuned, and we're here for you. And are you ready to have an inspired and empowered life? I'm your host, Nanci Deutsch, licensed clinical social worker, certified hypnotherapist, and intuitive breakthrough expert. I combine my counseling, coaching, and intuitive work to transform your life. And this show is not, and this is especially in light of the behaviors, the show is not a replacement for therapy and counseling. It is for educational purposes only. So we are going to get started. Now, like I said, we had requests on more self-sabotaging behaviors, and I heard your requests, and now I've added some more. So the one around mindset and beliefs, the other issue that may come up, the behavior is if you are over-identifying with your mistakes, which can bring up shame or guilt, instead of focusing on the learning opportunities, that is definitely a self-sabotaging behavior. And so if you discover that you are in that pattern, what I really want to support you is, instead of focusing on that mistake and feeling the shame or the guilt, or both, ask yourself, what did I learn from this experience? What did I learn from this experience? And the next group of behaviors that we were talking about is avoidance and procrastination. Now, one of the other self-sabotaging behaviors is indecisiveness. So you delay your decisions because your fear of making the wrong decision. But what happens when you do that, it puts you in a state of paralysis. You end up, or you can feel really confused. And there's this lack of trust in yourself. And so, my remedy for that is to work on what you need to do to, and I'll get to your question in a sec, Misty. What you need to learn to do is to tap into your intuition. And I know that because I used to suffer from indecisiveness. And I was always asking everybody about what decision should I make instead of consulting me. And what really helped me and transformed, and we're going to go over more ways to transform these behaviors, is to start tapping into my intuition and asking what's for my highest good, so that I invite you and support you in doing that. Misty, how long does it take to realize you learn from it is a question. Okay. So here's the thing, what I invite you to do, because you may not even be realizing that you're going back over things that you've made a mistake about. And instead of figuring out what to do, you're feeling that shame or that guilt. Or maybe it's frustration. You're feeling some kind of emotion that blocks you from moving forward. And it's as soon as you realize that you're doing that. So it may be that you just made a mistake and you're realizing you're shaming and guilting yourself, or it may be a mistake that you made years ago. And you've been living with that shame and that guilt, which is totally self-sabotaging. And so here's your opportunity to free yourself of the shame and guilt and say to yourself, and make a choice and say, I choose to let this go. I choose to let the shame and the guilt go. And I ask, what did I learn from this experience? So you're changing that energy of the shame and guilt into a positive energy so that you can then free yourself of that old energy. So hopefully that helped. And if you have any other questions about that, let me know. Okay, Anastasia says, but we don't always know what is best for us without thinking about things first. Knee-jerk first reaction is what happens most of the time. And that, yes, Anastasia, that is true. Most of us end up having that reaction, and that's coming from your subconscious mind. And it's not about you. If you have the reaction, it's fine, because what the most important thing is that awareness. It's the awareness that, oh, I'm in a sabotaging behavior. I'm in that old energy of guilting myself or shaming myself. And I've had clients that ended up they're always like, I did it wrong. I'm so stupid. And when I bring attention to that, they're able to realize, oh, that's what's going on. And then they're able to make the shift. So know that if you have the reaction, it's part of being human, And that you can then, it's the awareness that comes in that you've had the reaction, and you may need time to reflect on that, and that's okay. It's not about totally being perfect, because that's a self-sabotaging behavior, and if you put that on yourself, you're not going to be helpful. It's more about the awareness. Oh, okay, I am in this old energy of shame or guilt, or I'm in reaction. What can I do to change? What can I do to take care of myself? And so all of that is part of what you can do to transform those and break free from the self-sabotaging behaviors. So, and Mickey asks, what are the best choices we can make to let things go? So, I went I am going to be talking more about that, but to briefly say, being able to make the choice, and the biggest choice you can make, where it begins, because if you don't begin with awareness, that's the biggest choice. I choose to have awareness of any kind of behavior that is self-sabotaging. And I do want you to know that I am working on that handout for all of you, and you will have the checklist, and I hope that it will be finished by next week. So, because I added and updated all the new behaviors that I'm going to be sharing with you. So it's the most updated version of all the behaviors. 50 plus behaviors you'll have a checklist of, and some exercises that you can do to help you to shift them. Okay. So stay tuned. And so really know that the best choices that you can do is to gain the awareness, and then start being in the observation and ask yourself new questions or reframing. And I'm going to get deeper into that shortly. And Misty says, why is it so easy to see when others are in sabotaging behaviors and speak up, yet we don't see when we are doing it? And the reason is because when you're in a self-sabotaging behavior, it can be very unconscious. It's a habit. Okay. And so for those just tuning in, I'm going to give my quick Psych 101 lesson. Your conscious mind is the part of you tuning in. So congratulations, conscious mind of yours. Your subconscious mind, from the moment you were conceived to present time, has recorded every moment, and where those limiting beliefs and emotions that are where the self-sabotaging behaviors live are in the subconscious mind, or the unconscious. And what happens is, most of the time you're on automatic. 95%, and this is from like research that I've researched through the years, 95% of your thoughts, your actions, and your behaviors, and your beliefs, and your emotions are in your subconscious mind. And so you can easily see someone else's self-sabotaging behavior, but I invite you, if you're seeing it in someone else and you're noticing a self-sabotaging behavior in them, what I invite you to do is ask yourself, what behavior, what self-sabotaging behavior do I need to see in myself? And I'm hoping that this checklist will be helpful for you so that you can actually check off things that you may not have been aware of in the past. But now you're going to be more aware. And again, once you bring awareness to that behavior, it goes from being a subconscious, unconscious behavior to bringing it into the awareness, brings it into your consciousness, into your conscious mind. And when you bring it into your conscious mind, and this is why having your conscious awareness is so important, because it empowers you to make an empowered decision. What do I choose to do to shift this behavior? And that's why it's so important to become aware. And here's the thing, this is a journey, and sometimes you may not be aware of your self-sabotaging behaviors until you're ready and willing to be aware. It's a journey. It's a journey. And the most important thing is that you are in the journey, and not to beat yourself up that you haven't figured it all out, because that is a self-sabotaging behavior. It's gentleness and kindness. Okay, I know Anastasia has a question too. Can we have them when we are not doing them at the time? Can we know we have them when we are not doing them at the time? Yes, because what might happen is you may be doing something totally different. And this is where the superconscious mind comes in. Your higher self, your higher aspects, like your higher self, that wise, unconditionally part of you, and you all have it, or your soul, or your angels and guides and beings of light, or the universe, or higher power, or whatever you want to call it, or God, that you may not be doing the behavior, and all of a sudden, boom, you have an awareness, you have a realization. Oh, I do that. And even when you see a behavior in someone else, you may actually have that behavior in some form or other. And so that's why it's important to ask yourself, is there a behavior I need to look at if you're noticing it in someone else? So I invite you to do that. So the next group that we're adding the behaviors to is overdoing and overcommitting. So the behavior I'm adding to the list is busy work. So if you find yourself in tasks and you are busy and you're just busy doing, and you're not really, you're avoiding, you're doing busy work. You're doing busy work to avoid the tasks that you need to do. And then habits and coping mechanisms. So additional habits that I want to bring out. Chronic multitasking. You're spreading yourself too thin and achieving little. So if you're a multitasker and then you start multitasking, you're doing three things at the same time, and you're really not really focused on any one thing, you could be a chronic multitasker. If you're doing this on an ongoing basis and you do it a lot, then that's one of the ways you're self-sabotaging yourself. So that's one. Another one is chronic lateness. Chronic lateness. If you're, I see, okay, we're not going to repeat that one because I am wanting anonymity. So unless that person wants to share it, and she can type it into the chat if she wants, then you can share. Okay. Chronic lateness. you're consistently running late. So if, running late once in a while, okay, we all do that here and there. But if you're chronically late, that is a self-sabotaging behavior that can really end up really getting in your way of success and also sabotaging relationships. Just saying. Because when you're in a relationship with somebody and they're waiting 15, 20 minutes, a half an hour every time, then that could sabotage the relationship. So, something to be on the lookout for. And then there's overindulgence. And overindulgence into anything is not good. Remember, moderation. Also, depending on what you're moderating. So, if you are overindulging, let's say binge watching or over consuming entertainment, any kind of entertainment, any TV, any, okay, yes, all right. So I get that. And we'll let that person share, I guess, if she feels okay about sharing. So, binge watching or over consuming entertainment to avoid discomfort. So, if like, here's the thing, I think we all do binge watching, but if you're consistently and chronically over binging any kind of entertainment, social media, TV, or podcast, radio, whatever, then here's the key. The key is, are you avoiding? You need to ask the question, am I avoiding a feeling? Am I avoiding doing something I need to do, a behavior, a task? And so those are questions you need to ask yourself when you're in the middle of that. So other self-sabotaging behaviors are clutter, hoarding, and disorganization. So if you or someone you know has cluttered spaces, so there's a physical mess, and the physical mess will drain your energy and clarity. So it's the opposite of that cleaning, tidying up to avoid. This is the opposite, where the clutter, you're having clutter to sabotage maybe your success or sabotage other things. And there's a reason for that. And then you have disorganization, losing track of important tasks, papers, or projects. So disorganization can be a real self-sabotaging behavior. And if you're disorganized, you will want to ask yourself, what can I do to start becoming more organized? And we're going to go deeper into those behaviors. And that way, I know Mickey asked about choices. That way, you can get a choice and then take an action on that choice. Hoarding tendencies. So, if you're someone who holds on to things out of fear or, excuse me, if you're someone who holds on to things out of fear, lack, or loss, then you could be in hoarding mode, self-sabotaging behavior. So that could be another way. In relationship patterns, if you have weak boundaries is a self-sabotaging behavior, letting others overstep your time or your energy. Over apologizing. If you or someone you know is, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, and they're sorry, they're sorry about everything, and they're always saying, I'm sorry, or you're always saying, I'm sorry, and you're apologizing, even apologizing for things you don't even need to apologize for, then that's a self-sabotaging behavior. And even taking responsibility for things that aren't yours. And I might have mentioned this last week, but this is important, not asking for help. Because if you're not asking and you're not willing to ask, that's a self-sabotaging behavior. And it's okay to ask for help. We need to ask for help. It's important to ask when you need help. So business specific self-sabotage, the fear of visibility. If you have a fear of visibility and you're hiding in any way because you don't want to be seen or you're afraid to be seen, that's a self-sabotaging behavior, especially in your business, because you want to be able to be seen and known and visible. The more seen and visible you are, the more ability you have, the opportunity to have new customers and clients. And then another sabotage is refusing to niche down. Anybody who's refusing to niche down, and you may think, why would that be a self-sabotaging behavior? Because if you're generalizing and you're being so general about who you serve, then your specific market, your specific target, who you're meant to serve, will totally glaze over your work. And trying to serve really won't serve anyone. And your self-sabotaging behavior is your fear of missing out. So, and Misty asks, hoarding can be a past situation issue as well. Yes. Okay. So, Misty, I want you to know that, yes, hoarding can be a past situation. And speaking of past situations, that every single one of these self-sabotaging behaviors that lives in your subconscious mind, there is a deeper reason for all of them. And part of your work is to learn or to understand what is the reason, what's going on for the self-sabotaging behavior. And very often it could be something from your past, a past trauma where there was loss or the fear of you're fearful of letting go. And it could be from your childhood. It could be from adulthood, or it could be from childhood. So no. And if you've overcome hoarding, congratulations. And no, if you're still hoarding or still a hoarder, then that's something for you to look at. What is it? What's the fear, the loss, or the, what's really going on underneath the behavior? And that's for all of these behaviors. And additional sabotaging behaviors. So, and I might have talked about this, chronic comparison on social media. If you're comparing yourself, that's not helpful to you. And self-isolation. If you're isolating yourself, that is a self-sabotaging behavior. And I think I mentioned this, but it's an important one, because if you're isolating instead of reaching out, then that's not really helpful to you. It's important to reach out to friends and loved ones. And then sabotaging relationships where you push clients or partners or friends away because of fear. And that's also. And then future tripping, obsessing over what if falls? What if it falls instead of acting? What if it fails? What if I do this and it fails? Or what if this happens? Or the what ifs. Those what ifs can really be it's self-sabotaging. And when clients tell me that they're doing the what ifs, I say, the first thing that you need to do is, as soon as you become aware, you want to bring yourself back into present time and start with what's really going on for you in present time. What are the fears, or what is it that you need to understand or know? Now, so that's that. Now, I'm going to start talking about some things. And we're going to go into something that's really important. So there's nail biting. And nail biting could be subconscious tension, that ends up being harmful. Self-harming and body-directed behaviors. These are self-sabotaging behaviors. Then there's skin picking and hair pulling. And what that is, it's stress-driven behaviors. And those behaviors, they're self-sabotaging. And they're hurting you. And then there's something called direct harm, is cutting or other self-harm. Now, if you have any of these self-harming behaviors, it's really important that you find really, and I'm saying please, if you have self-harm behaviors, please seek help. Please find a therapist, find a counselor, find a hypnotherapist, somebody who can help you to uncover the cause of those self-harming behaviors and really seek professional help. And you can always, if you're in immediate crisis, then you can call 988 for immediate crisis support or any kind of crisis hotline. And so really, those are really important self-sabotaging behaviors that need to be handled and dealt with so that you can be healthier and understand and uncover. Now, all the self-sabotaging behaviors, as I said, are all in your subconscious mind. And some of them are more, if you find any of these self-sabotaging behaviors are interfering with your life in a big way, you want to go for help. You want to get counseling or therapy. And then, or depending on how severe, you may want to get coaching. If they're really interfering with you moving forward in your life, then you need counseling and therapy. If they're interfering with your success or moving forward or creating more of what you want in your life, that's more of a coaching. There's a distinction between them. And I always make that distinction since I have done both, and I am both a counselor, therapist, hypnotherapist, and a coach. And really, it's important for you. But when I give you the checklist, you'll be able to start assessing. And again, the self-harm, go for help, please. Okay. So now let's talk a little bit. Now, I said I would do the top 10. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you in the chat, do you want the top 10 today, or will we continue this next week? I'm thinking that we're going to get to the top 10 next week. And not only are we going to get to the top 10 next week, but we're also in those top 10 behaviors. What we're going to do is give you a little quickie solution. Now, the deeper solution that you can have, and I'm going to talk more about the solutions with the time that we have left. The deepest solution is understanding the cause of that self-sabotaging behavior. And that cause is in your subconscious mind. And so, yes, Misty goes, next week would probably be best. Yes, I am going to wait till next week to do the top 10. Da-da-da-da. All right. So, a few things. Again, the most important thing that you can do to start shifting these self-sabotaging behaviors is having the awareness that you're doing them. You can't change something you're not aware of. And that's and like we talked about from the questions, that sometimes you may not even be doing the behavior in the moment. Now, if you become aware of it in the moment, that's great. But you may end up at another time during the day or during the week, like, oh, well, usually a self-sabotaging behavior, usually the self-sabotaging behavior, I'll answer that in a second. Usually the self-sabotaging behavior is something that you're doing probably daily in some way or other. But having that awareness at another time when you're not doing it is very possible, and also a good idea. Like, not a good idea, but it's just allowing that energy from your higher consciousness to flow to you. And that's why asking the question, what are my self-sabotaging behaviors? And that's why when you said, I really want a list of them, I'm like, all right, let's do a list. So what I got you, and you are going to get the list. So Anastasia says, is it a top 10 of what we have heard of, or are there different ones yet to be known? No, this top 10 is it's the top 10 behaviors that we've already discussed, but they're the top 10 that many of you are doing. And I always get curious. What are the top 10? I always get curious about those top 10. So we're going to give you the top 10. I like that. That's fun, right? We're transforming self-sabotaging behaviors into fun, because when you get conscious of that self-sabotaging behavior, then you can say, oh, I'm doing this behavior. What can I do to shift it? Again, that awareness. Misty goes, agreed. Agreed. Yep. So now you want to pause and question. Instead of reacting, and here's the question, even if you are reacting automatically, okay, I'm going to add this caveat. So as soon as you notice you've reacted, whether it's in the moment or afterwards, you can ask yourself these questions. What am I really afraid of here? Or what's really going on here? If I trusted myself, what would I do differently? What would I do differently if I trusted myself? And what do I actually want? Now, again, it depends on the behavior. And I would add to that list What am I really avoiding? What am I really avoiding by doing this behavior? Am I avoiding a feeling? Am I avoiding a task that I need to get done? Am I avoiding um, like some kind of more positive feelings? So I would ask yourself, what am I really avoiding? And that could be another thing that you can think about. And then you want to rewrite the belief. So, for example, let's say the limiting belief that came up is you become aware that, let's say you're in the comparison game or you're in the perfection game or whatever that is. And underneath, again, what's really going on? You want to understand, you discover the belief, I'm not good enough. And you discover the belief, um, Misty, I see your question, and I am going to get to the question next week. All right. So know that we will continue. We'll start with your question next week. Okay. Because I want to be able to answer it more fully. And I'm kind of going to be wrapping up. And so after I do this, I'm going to wrap up and then we'll continue more positive ways to overcome these behaviors. So instead of I'm not good enough, say to yourself, what is it that I really need to know? What is it that I will make me feel more positive about myself? And maybe it's something like I am learning and growing and becoming the person who can handle this, or I am becoming the person that that is who I am, who I really am, or who I want to be. And we'll go deeper into that as well. And what happens is, and if you do the affirmations, and these are affirmations, and you continually repeat them, repetition can help shift the subconscious mind. But it may take a while, but it can work. And we're going to go more deeply into all of this next week. So I guess this is a ongoing journey of understanding yours and others. Well, mostly yours, because I want you to own your own self-sabotaging behaviors. So stay tuned for part 5 next week so that you can break free and transform your self-sabotaging behaviors. So join me next Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern, on talk4tv.com, W4WN.com, and my YouTube channel. And really, to sum it up, we talked about more behaviors that we added to the list and some ways that you can overcome them. And we're going to continue. And you can also hear the podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, Pandora, and Amazon, and many more. And I wish you all an inspired and empowered day and an inspired and empowered week. Have a great one, everybody.